Hello, everyone.
Hello.
How are you?
Fantastic.
I hope you guys are having good time in Zanzibar.
Yeah.
All right. My name is Munaidu Senali. I'm the country director for Wingo Africa in Tanzania. So that's everybody knows, no worries. But something that you don't know is, maybe some of you, is that I'm from Zanzibar. So I feel proud and satisfaction that these telecom events now are moving into Zanzibar. We had one last month, Connect to Connect, and now the other one is happening here at GCCM. So thank you, GCCM. We hope that next year again will happen in Zanzibar. After all, we all love to come to Zanzibar, right?
Oh, sure. Sure.
All right. Just give a brief background about Wingo Africa. So Wingo Africa is a company that is purely focused on data centers. And we are a carrier neutral data centers. We specifically focus on carrier neutrality. When we say carrier neutrality, means we are not affiliated to any operator, any mobile network operator, ISP, or any subsea cable operator. So we're just private, and with carrier neutrality, we give an advantage of open access. That means any operator in country, our ISP or any subsea cable operators, they are welcome to extend their fiber cable into our data center. That has given us somehow an edge because of the open access, our customers and clients, they have a variety of operators to choose in terms of their connectivity. So not only carrier neutrality, we are tier 3 designed. That means we provide an uptime of 99.982%. That's almost 100% again. But we are also like first of kind, like we are the first carrier neutral data center in Tanzania. And currently we are the only licensed tier 3 carrier neutral data center. Don't shoot me. As per TCRA. I know there are other data centers that are moving, that are working, but as TCRA licensed tier 3 data center is Wingo so far. In terms of East Africa presence, we started in Djibouti 10 years back, and that's when all these cables were coming. So currently we say that 60% of international traffic, internet, is passing through Djibouti. From there, we have been expanding to other regions in East Africa. So we had Ethiopia, Somaliland, and now in Tanzania. For the last 10 years in Djibouti, we have guaranteed 100% uptime. We are planning to do the same over here in other regions as well. So Tanzania, so far we have been operational for the last 1 year, and we never had any downtime. So I've got several points of discussion, but I believe the panelists and the industry leaders here, they will explain further details. I'll just give some brief introduction, and then they'll take it over from here. In terms of new investment opportunities and growth submarine market demands, as you can see that the market of data center and submarine cable is expected to grow. Last year, it was at around 10.6 billion in 2022. But by 2030, we're expecting around 35 billion. As you can see that there's a demand for subsea market, and the growth rate is almost like 10%. But if you look at this growth, it is caused by what, and what new investment opportunities that may come, they may arise. So if you look Currently, if you're looking at, there's a expanding of digital services. There are so many digital services that are coming up, like AI. We're talking about augmented reality, virtual reality, IoTs. All these will need somewhere to store their data. And therefore, there is a need for investment in those cables. But how can it be done? There's two ways. One, whether to bring a new cable or maybe upgrading the ones that we currently have. But not only that, if you look into the African market, there is still so many underserved areas. And therefore, there is a need for much investment in those areas. If we look into technology advancements, there's a higher need of higher capacities and cables so that we are able to invest more in those submarine cable markets. But also, if you look at the green energy initiatives that have come up, there is a need for investors to look in renewable energy sources that can be used on those submarine cables. But as Honorable Minister mentioned in the morning as well, they're always there to support the government initiatives. So government can support, can invest on these cables, as well as on the data centers. And that could bring more connectivity to the market, as well as increase new markets in the African region. As you can see that there's a rapid growth in Africa. I think if you leave South Africa, Kenya, and Nigeria, there's so many countries that are still behind in terms of connectivity. So mobile data consumption across Africa is expected to increase by 40% each year until 2025. This is nearly the double average growth rate we currently have. It is also expected that the rate for sub-Saharan Africa will increase to 75%, while other global regions will be at 80%. So that means, again, sub-Saharan African region, we are very behind, but not that behind. By 2025, we should be closer to what global regions are at currently. In terms of today's and future data centers to meet subsea cable operators' demand, that's our aerial view, not currently, but expected to be. 25% of it is done. We're expecting in the next 3-4 years, we should have full complete as the aerial view is showing. For those who are lucky enough to be there, they've seen it. So today's and future data centers, especially for subsea cable operators, they usually look for several things. One is carrier neutrality, obviously, because of the open access and abundant choice of connectivity, as I mentioned, but also connectivity ecosystem. So data centers such as Wingu, we try to encourage different operators to come there. We have been lucky to have internet exchange in our data center. We've been just recently we advertised that Microsoft Azure Stack is sitting in our data center. In that way, like we have all the what we call components of ecosystem for subsea cables to move into such kind of data centers. But also in terms of connection, as I mentioned, we are in 4 countries. Most of these subsea cable operators, they look for connectivity in terms of connecting all these 4 countries. So you might have your data center sitting as a primary in Djibouti, but you can have redundancy maybe in Tanzania. So this kind of connectivity is possible when you have data centers that can have cross-border backhauls and connectivity. In terms of scalability, I mentioned that we are currently around 25%, but we're able to, in terms of expand. So we have plans for next year, the year after, and we can always expand as much as we can. We are looking at other markets in Tanzania, but also in African region. Redundancy is very important as well. So data centers that are present in Dar es Salaam can find redundancy in other regions as well. So Dodoma, Zanzibar, these are the areas that we're really looking forward to add. Okay, in terms of power, I think we're still lagging behind. So there's only 250 megawatts of installed data center capacity across Africa, which is very, very low compared to other countries. But we are expecting that by 2030, it is going to increase to 1.2 megawatts. Yeah. With the market experience and annual compounding growth rate of 12%, ample opportunities remain across Africa to develop and expand data center capacities. In terms of financing model, investment is very important in data center and subsea cable. As you know, there's a lot of funds that needs to be put on. Several factors can be taken into account. PPPs, public and private partnerships, whereby the government and telecom operators they work with private investors and bring finances to the cables as well as subsea to the data centers, but also DFIs, the development funding institutions like ADB and World Bank. They always provide grants and loans for much favorable rates. Therefore, you are able to finance the whole cable. But also, we have a real example currently, like 2Africa Cable just recently dropped in Tanzania, and consortium members. I think Kevin knows that, like China Mobiles, STC, and everyone, like 8 of them, they have all financed in that cable. That means this one, it reduces the risk of any failure or anything. So it's not going to be a loss to one operator only. It's going to be if there's anything, but hopefully we don't expect anything like that. But also other ways of financing could be like the vendors who, for example, like the ones who make the submarine cables, they can say like, okay, we can finance it and maybe get a share of the market. But also we have impact investors like ESGs that who are always willing to provide financing on the data centers and cables. We also have green energy initiatives. So they're always looking for renewable energy resources. But also telecom operator investment. So for example, like good example is Liquid, present in 14 countries. They're able to like expanding their connectivity, but they're able to finance these cables, Cairo to Cape Town, East, West, and all. 2021 was record breaking for Africa's technology sector, with most tech startups completing 100 million investment. But the IFC has identified that will add on another 180 billion to Africa's economy by 2025. So that's also something that's that will be coming up. On section 4, do large-scale M&A, merger and acquisition activities contribute to answering in funding more true growth? Yes, I would say yes. We have a clear example. We know that, for example, Tigo merged with Zantel, and they were later then acquired by Axian Group. So yes, I mean, in terms of growth, definitely. Zanzibar, for example, Zanzibar had Zantel as the main partner, but since Tigo has come up, they've put more portfolios, more customers in Zanzibar. So I was speaking to Salum just now at lunch. He was mentioning like 60% of the market was Zantel, and now Tigo coming, they take that market. So market consolidation is there, but also in terms of competition, they become more stronger, but also cost effective in terms of bringing more value to the industry as well. But not only that, because of mergers and acquisition, the company gets capital access. So you're able to access the investors, you're able to access the global partnerships. This gives a huge advantage to the companies that are very small before they got merged. But they also like help in infrastructure development. So because of the availability of capital, they can build their own infrastructure. They can build data centers. They can finance submarine cables. Yeah. Also, in terms of regulators, I mean, there's a big fight between regulators and operators, but if you're a small operator, obviously nobody will listen to you. But when you are merged and acquired by big operator, you have a very strong business case and go ahead with the regulators, which they are willing to listen and maybe to implement what operators they need. But also it will also create job creations as well. Once it's been acquired by bigger companies, you always get necessity of more people, and therefore employment opportunities will arise. Next generation planning. So it is essential that submarine cable operators need to plan for the future growth of internet and other digital services. This includes planning for the increasing demand for bandwidth and capacity. So basically, the next generation, we are looking into investing in new technologies such as artificial intelligence and machine learning. So this will help in terms of optimizing the performance and reliability of submarine cable networks. So here the aim is to position Africa to be more competitive across the global. But not only that, it brings benefits that are accessible to all generations of the population. Okay. Section 6, new partnership models between cable operators and content providers. As you can see, that's our selection of existing customers at Wingo Africa. You see that we have several players there. We have cable operators, we have content providers, we have international providers. All these partnership is beneficial in terms of the data ecosystem. First of all, when cable operators and content providers, they merge or they partnership, they form an enhanced connectivity infrastructure. The two can partner to improve and expand the submarine cables. They can also assist in terms of localized content. So instead of like contents that are from Western or US, they can just create a content that's been used in the region, African region. So African music, African movies, African educational stuff, everything. Yeah. So it brings more of local content. But also it gives them monetizing strategies whereby the two can partner together and find a way of areas of monetization. Lastly, we're expecting growth in everywhere. So submarine cable, internet, data center, and cloud, they go hand in hand in terms of growth. And with all this, will definitely assist on growing the expected connectivity across the African region. That's it. Thank you. Any questions?
So you had mentioned, by the way, thanks for the keynote speech. Very insightful. So part of your presentation, you had mentioned in regards to connecting. So every person collocating in your data center, you connect. There's an interconnection between the data centers. I just wanted to understand, how do you intend, or what have you done, let's say, to link up between your several data centers, like in Djibouti, Ethiopia, Somaliland, and in Tanzania? Are you using partners, or you have what kind of arrangements to make sure that there is redundancy for every client of yours that is collocating in those data centers?
Thank you, Said. Very good question. I was expecting a question from you. Okay, thanks. So in terms of connectivity, as you see that we have, first of all, cables that are coming from Djibouti. And currently, as we are speaking, we have 2 new cables that are coming into Africa, into Tanzania. To Africa, as well as Peace Cable. Yeah. So these 2 cables, they've already landed at Djibouti. They've already landed at Somaliland, and now they're coming into Tanzania. So that's a way of getting connectivity between these 3. But not only that, we have national backbone that we can extend from Tanzania, going to Kenya, going to Ethiopia. And we're also using our international partners in terms of connectivity to us, to all those 4 data centers that we have in hand. So I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Hussein. So perhaps what we can do is a quick introduction of everyone before. Said, can you start from you? Because we know Hussein now, I guess. Said, just start with a brief introduction, then we'll go through the left.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think we need to a little bit wake up. I'm not trying to say Hunaid was boring, but I think we need to a little bit have some energy so that we can have a more interactive discussions. My name is Said Ali. I am the Chief Operating Officer of Green Telecom. Passionate about connectivity, collaboration, and partnership. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Freddie Mrema. I'm part of Wing Management, working as Group Director for Enterprise Sales and Marketing. I oversee our 4 markets on enterprise and sales, Djibouti, Somaliland, Ethiopia, and Tanzania. Our key focus, like my colleague Hunaid explained, we are data center focused company. We only deal with tier 3 carrier neutral data centers. Happy to be part of the panel and happy to be with some of our partners and future customers. Thank you.
Afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making time to come and listen to us on a fantastic afternoon. I know you're thinking of going down the beach, but thank you for giving us time to share and collaborate and share insights. And Kamo is my name. I'm from IX Africa Data Center, the newest data center in Nairobi, Kenya. I'm in this business development and sales, passionate about also creating fantastic ecosystems. Before I was in a telco wholesale industry. So I've seen a whole ecosystem around how to make sure all these cables bring their content, how their content is shared across enterprises and finally the end users, because at the end of the day, we can all be sitting here, but we all have an intention to serve an end user and an end customer. So the idea is how best to do it. and even what the ministers say today should be about accessibility, affordability, and availability. So happy to have you guys here.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good to see you all, and thank you again for being here with us. My name is Kevin. I lead the wholesale unit for China Mobile in Africa. I spent the last 15 years in different parts of the value chain in technology, and more recently, I look after the investments of China Mobile here in Africa, subsea cables, points of presence, data center. And I'm happy to see partners that we are working with here locally and internationally. So I'm looking forward to having this conversation and sharing.
Yeah, guys. So the idea is to make it interactive. So the crowd is happily able to involve themselves. So what we have today is a crowd of people working in the DC, the carrier, and the backbone. I believe we're missing Ahmed. But basically, the idea is to discuss about what are the stimulus that is driving actually East Africa. So obviously from Zanzibar, there are some initiatives coming from new geographies. So how can we bring the new players and how do they involve and shape the new ecosystem? So I had a few set of questions that I wanted to raise here. And can someone just share, based on the description of what are the main trends, the main projects at heart today that are changing East Africa, and not only Tanzania or Zanzibar?
Is it directed to anyone?
You want to start, actually?
Okay. So now that I'm holding the mic, I think it's a curse of the microphone. So it's a good question. What projects are shaping the landscape in East Africa and Africa as a whole? I'd say in 2023, I think we are looking at a few new initiatives. From a data center point of view, we're seeing more and more data center capacity coming into the markets. We're also seeing some increased cable connectivity and subsea cable at that. We are also seeing a lot of terrestrial infrastructure that is being advanced at cross-border connections. This used to be quite challenging to set up 5-10 years ago, but we are seeing a lot of effort from governments, local and regional governments, putting efforts into this kind of initiatives. I think on the subsea side, one of the cable projects I'm quite passionate about is the Two Africa cable. This is currently known as the largest cable in the world today, and luckily last year when we spoke here, we said the cable is going to be landing in 2023. 2 months ago we saw that happen in Tanzania, and this just brings the inclusivity of a country like Tanzania to be part of the digital connection across the globe. We are also seeing more and more data centers, like I mentioned, tier 3 facilities, carrier neutral facilities coming in, thanks to Wingu and what they're doing. When we look at the data center market across the world, about 1% of that market sits in Africa. So that's already a staggering difference. Now, out of that 1% of data center footprint, 50% is in South Africa. So you can already see that almost 53 countries in Africa have a big deficit of infrastructure of this kind of scale. And we have a big, it can be a challenge, but it's also a big opportunity to realize that this is something that we'll have to catch up with where the market is. I'm also seeing a lot of investment on the terrestrial side. We're seeing public-private partnerships coming into play to set up infrastructure. I was part of a project, for example, in Malawi to lay about 1,500 kilometers of fiber. This was part of the World Bank funded project. So this kind of project accelerates the connectivity within these markets, and also remove some of the barriers that we were speaking earlier in the morning around getting the marginalized communities to have access to this kind of connectivity. So different kind of touch points in different areas, and that's my opinion.
Thanks, Kevin. Talking about accessibility, Said, because I know you're an ISP, right, in Tanzania. And I do know that you're approaching the retail or the corporate B2B market. Would you say that regulations in Tanzania, in terms of how to help ISPs of your size, are they really moving forward to help you with more flexibility investing or deploying your network to your customer cloud?
Nice question, Dylan. So among the initiatives that the government has actually passed through this new financial year was reducing the cost of right-of-ways. It used to be $1,000 for a kilometer. Now it has shot down to, I believe, 200 per kilometer, which is a tremendous. We would wish for better, but it's a tremendous drop and relief that, as providers, have been graced, and this has also helped in terms of giving courage to local ISPs to be able to increase their investments on the FTTH and the metros within the region.
Great, thanks. And what I see is that we're seeing new regulations then coming in, and coming to the DC then. So we've heard of Wingu. We know that there's a lot of initiatives happening from Kenya. I would say the big brother, and I don't know if I'm politically correct to say this, coming from outside of Swahili land, but big brother. So in the big brother land, and would you say that the investment allowing new DCs is also pushing the government as a trade-off to give more accessibility to the market of third parties, ISPs, private groups that are non-governmental affiliated?
That's a good question, Dylan, because what we've seen, especially in our market, and what even generated the conversations we had around IX Africa being in the newest and biggest kid in the block, because we just recently went live with 1.5 megawatts of power. By the end of the year, we'll have 4.5, and in 18 months, we'll be at 22 megawatts of power. So we're building what Kevin had mentioned, the 1% is now in the East Africa market. And to do that level of investments, of course, considering that our biggest shareholder is Helios Investment Partners, which are a venture capitalist, and the government now has come in, or rather, one of the things we're also pushing through, especially towards the government, is two-pronged approach. When it comes to supporting this investment, is how can you support us when it comes to power concessions? Because power is quite a huge cost to any data center. Freddie can confirm to that. While we are all claiming, like, for example, Kenya, we are 90% renewable energy. We have hydro, we have wind, we have hydro, we have wind, we have already an engagement on solar. At 90% of it, we still have quite a significant high level of tariffs when it comes to taxes. So how does the government support us in lowering that cost to be able to create an ecosystem that is affordable to their customers? And also what we've seen in our industry when it comes to regulator, recently there was an announcement that was made before we had a restriction on the kind of ISPs that could be in our market. You have to have 30% shareholding. Now, recently that was scrapped off. So it allows a lot of operators to be licensed into the market, allows a lot of operators to come and trade. Like, for example, yourself, you do not have a challenge now coming into the market and providing a unique value proposition, because the idea is the more a value proposition allowable, the easier it is now for the enterprise market to enjoy some economies of scale, some benefit and some support. Another thing that's also happening in the industry is also to try and create special economic zones. Today in the morning, I heard about the same happening in Zanzibar. In Kenya, we have the same in an area called Lapset, Lamu. We are creating a zone where it is efficient for high industry, high-powered industry to come set up, have concession when it comes to tax, to manpower, to resources, to licenses over a given period of time. So this way it allows you to also take the leap and come and invest, knowing over time you'll be able to recoup your investment and support the industry at large. When all this is put in together, it creates an ecosystem that the buyers and the sellers are able to properly interact and support one another in getting the citizen the services they require at the end of the day.
Sure. I would like to add.
Go ahead,
also,
Rudy.
you referred Kenya as the big brother. Yes, it's true. They are a bit ahead of us, but other East African countries are trying to catch up. So in terms of how the government is trying to provide more access, we've seen the good example from the MNOs. You know, even Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania, probably Rwanda and Burundi, the public MNOs is like disappearing slowly, but adding more private companies to come in. The same is happening now in the data center picture, because by providing proper incentive for investors to come to invest into the data center market, it helps providing more access and more value proposition to the market. So for example, in Tanzania, Wingu, yes, we got licensed, we got incentive from the government. We are seeing our colleague also, Raxio, is coming into the picture. So instead of depending on MNO-owned facilities, we are now going open now to the pure carrier neutral data center sort of infrastructure company. So yes, we are trying to catch up to the big brother, as well as trying to work closer with the government to provide better service to the.
No, I agree, Freddie. In fact, Kenya is not the only kid in the block that is having, influence. But we see new geography players, like we've mentioned the Action Group from Madagascar. We've mentioned as well Middle Eastern players actually slowly putting investment into the east of Africa. I like to think as the Gulf countries aware of the sun, aware of renewable energy and their capabilities. And you as Wingu have seen that you've planted dew on the map. Would you say that from a M&A or a business venture with the Gulf and all those operators coming from Oman and the Middle East at large, would you say that they are influencing the initiative into renewable power being provisioned into the DCs, or am I incorrect?
No, you are very right. Actually, it's a global initiative, and even the investors we are using, they all insist that on the renewable energy. So yes, they're influencing, but in reality, the cost of fuel is growing high, but also the economy is growing faster, and the utility companies cannot sustain the pressure. So we need to find a solution for renewable energies to be able to continue powering these facilities.
In regards to Zanzibar, and I don't know if we have people working in the telco space of Zanzibar, but probably you can elaborate on this. How many pipelines and cables connect Zanzibar today? Yeah, to provide electricity and internet. Okay, and is there any, can you elaborate on any PPPs or M&A that are actually helping those infrastructure systems to grow and span further to what they are today?
At the moment, I think what we have is sufficient for the requirement that is there. I'm not sure about how they're planning to expand in the future. But at the moment, yeah.
So let me just add up on that. So it's still on a feasibility stage. There's discussions of hope. There's no SECOM in the room to shoot me. So there's discussions of SECOM and the government of Zanzibar to have undersea cable all the way from Mombasa to Pemba, and then from Pemba to come to Unguja here, where we are right now. Currently, it will land in Pumba. Currently still on the feasibility stage, but however, we are hoping that to happen.
Okay. Yeah, please, Freddie.
So there is also connectivity of fiber from Zanzibar to the mainland, where now we can access the cable landing stations. So there is Zico, which is a utility company here, which is providing terrestrial from Pemba all the way to Tanga, and then coming to Dar es Salaam, accessing the cable landing station. But in terms of power, there is also some project that has been announced for solar panel. I think it's about 300 megawatts, which will be generated by solar. It's a partnership, government and private sectors.
So in terms of PPP, you would say that the main initiative is being pushed by the DCs to go more green, and you can elaborate. It's actually a good question. So as you know, the big investments can be put through, it's a private-public partnership. So it's basically an alliance between the government and big companies with big pockets full of cash. That's all right. We're here for that. We're here for that.
Okay, so PPP is quite an interesting relationship when it comes to creating sustainable solutions, because on one hand we have like in our instance, you have big customers, cloud providers, hypercloud guys who are very keen on environmental and sustainable solutions. In fact, they report on it wherever they go. They always ask you, what are you doing to support us on sustainability? So a country like Kenya, what we do have, what we've seen happening, because whereas we have one single distribution of power, we have various sources from, we have the hydro, we have geothermal, we have wind, and all this comes to the grid at all different times. We have the guys who do the long haul, we call them the Kitrako. Then we have the ones who go all the way to the last mile, the Kenya Pipeline, Kenya Power. And then, of course, from this basis, what has happened and what we've seen happening from our Ministry of Energy is to try and support the industry in providing sustainable solutions. Recently, having hosted the African Climate Summit by our president, it's one of the push that we're pushing to make sure whatever sources of power that come into the country, whatever is being generated in the country, has a proper mix of sustainability and renewable sources. So now when it comes to the investors that are coming into the data centers, because depending on who you're targeting, that, as Freddie mentioned, is one of the things that I keep asking, how are you providing sustainable solutions? Because you want to be able to even report, well, the kind of suppliers you're working with are having sustainable solutions in the market. So they will come and ask, what have you done for your data centers? On our element, for example, we've designed the system in such a way we take advantage of free cooling. In the times when the climate is very chilly, the months between April to July, our data center is doing free cooling. We've provided mist fire techniques in case we don't have to focus on gas suppression systems that are not friendly to the environment. Something that is sustainable, something that is also healthy. Then people talk about how does that help when it comes to solar. Solar is a mix of both. It works when it comes, we're working with providing IT solution basically for the office space and the rest. But when it comes to a big data center, you'll have to have acres on acres. For example, for you to generate 22.5 megawatts of IT power, you'll need more than 20 acres of solar farm to be able to do that. So how do you balance the two? Provide solutions from the current grid to be able to say your system is sustainable when it comes to power. And the government helps to provide those concessions, because what they did providing wind power, like Turkana Wind Power Project, it was heavily PPP financed. It had the government provided the land, the infra, whatever was available. The private sector are the ones who brought the manpower, the resources, and the money, of course, to do this. And they're doing the same also with the EcoCloud. There's an EcoCloud data center that they are focused on trying to take advantage of the geothermal power that is coming on board into the market. How are they providing that? They know for sure government owns the land at all carrier. They are looking for investors who will be able to come now and build a data center within that ecosystem to be able to take advantage of that green source of energy. So it's a proper mix of the both, because we all have skill set. They all have skill sets from different elements. Not a public cannot do what private does, and vice versa.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Freddie. Now moving away from the DC and the power and the how to make the digital funneling happening. Let's move to third-party groups that are actually investing, but from a more backdoor entrance. CMI is one player that is investing heavily and involved in Kenya, but yet not necessarily with a retail license. Kevin, being in Kenya in a very dynamic market, how do you make of everything happening around new DCs, new cables, and you being an investor of one of them? And how do you see CMI putting that forward into Kenya and maybe making a revenue out of this market?
I'll try and recap what you said. I think on two ways. One, we see ourselves first not as a competitor, but a partner, where we want to work with the local ecosystem of people. We plan not to build own infrastructure in most of the markets we go to. Actually, our idea is to always complement whatever efforts are already in place. So even the likes of Kenya, when we first set up, we did not necessarily go into a new data center that CMI built. We will use an existing facility. When it comes to fiber and metro extensions, we will use the existing infrastructure and work with those partners to improve it rather than replicate it with new investment. So we work with the existing markets to support them from where we are strong at, which is the technology. So many of our partners rely us as a technology platform they can rely on. Because when you speak, let's say, of IoT, sorry, my voice today is not at its best. When you speak, for example, about IoT, we are the world's largest IoT provider with 1.6 billion connections today. But when we come to a market like Africa or Tanzania, you'll not see us trying to do IoT directly. We'll work with a partner to enable their capabilities. The same works for data center and infrastructure. We will work with the local ecosystem, local data center providers to enable their facilities be able to host, let's say, subsea cable platforms that can then reach out to the masses at higher scale and higher efficiency. So that's how we position ourselves, not just in Kenya, but across the world.
Well, it's funny because I've got you on my left, I've got Anne on my right. Both you used to work for incumbents, I understand. You were working at Zuku or Wananchi, and before that, Telkom. You were working at Telkom, so you are two successful people. I know Said is probably the only guy who's an entrepreneur fully. So what I understand, and Freddie, obviously, you're now at Wingu, so an incumbent. So here we are, and what I make of this is that the people who grow the ladder, they go to where the market is actually the most dynamic. So I've got an IoT and cable investor player. I've got a data center player. Said, you seems to be the only left out here. So where's your bet as a company? Where? Yeah, but you're an entrepreneur and you retail. So in this, what is, as a B2B orientated and retail market orientated ISP, what do you want to? How would you like the market to change in which directions to support your company, your initiative? And second, what would you like to improve to better service your customers? So it's a very open, wide question. So feel free to.
It's so wide, but I have Yvonne looking at me with an eye. So I would say from partnership from the telco side, from the MNOs, would definitely, there's a lot of collaboration there. I believe if we circle back and analyze and look at opportunities whereby we strongly go together, and support each other, there's potential for growth. Funny enough is for Africa, it's super virgin. And I believe the more the players, the more the opportunity. The other thing I would say, so this would be on the regulatory perspective, in terms of the pricing for the frequency. So apart from, I know everyone keeps talking about fiber and all that. So there are areas whereby they're still underserved, and I believe with its wireless connectivity and the pricing for the frequency, if they're lowered enough or rearranged and sliced further to have a wider range, for example, for the free band, for example, for the ISPs like us, because the pricing for the frequency is more catered for the MNOs, and even though on the MNO perspective, it's still underutilized. So I could have the investment to be able to, let's say, buy the equipment, but we need to have that openness, let's say, with the telcos, to be able to maybe work together, and we could invest. They could give us part of their frequency, and we use it together to make sure we increase the data penetration and bridge the digital divide.
Okay, so thanks. What I take of this is that the regulation behind the telco is actually not changing as fast as the new players coming into Tanzania or in Swahili land. My question is there room for more players under this regulatory framework? Is there a way for the regulatory framework to change, and what are the catalysts that will make it change? So
I just want to add something.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Said, because when he was talking, I felt like he was looking at me. Are you looking at Yvonne? Okay. No. But to be honest, they are, well, this number is different, but I think fully registered, formalized SME sector in Tanzania, about 100,000 K. That's a massive size of opportunity that's quite untapped, because they're still highly not connected. We like to think of Tanzania as a saturated market, but it's actually not. We say saturated because we're focusing on multinationals and medium to big companies. Now, that space, you do it much better than I will ever be able to do it, because of our pricing structure, because of our cost structure, because of the bureaucracy within. How maybe you will always be faster than we are, because of some of the partners that you use, some of the equipment that you use. So you'll deliver faster, you'll probably be cheaper, so you'll probably be more flexible with this space. So for us, we actually want to empower you to, yes, win more business, but through you, because you'll always do, especially those customers, you'll always do it better than we can. There are some customers that will be better, but you'll always be better in that space. So we're very keen to support you so that you actually get to where you want to go. And then we can actually start serving this market and not focus so much on the saturation where that we all compete on. So I just wanted to make that very clear. We can't compete with you. We really can't. And we're not trying to. Collaboration.
Yes.
Actually, Dylan, I wanted also, because this was directed to Said, but having an advantage of working from MNO, because working with Tigo 10 years, so I was on a business to business perspective. So my reflection on this will be, everybody need to play on their strength, and the collaboration will help a lot, making the size of the pie bigger than we expect. Because if a wholesale carrier play on wholesale, a retail player plays on retail, a carrier neutral play on carrier neutral, on wholesale, and carrier cable play on carrier. This will help the value chain to be reaching to the end user very effective and at a reasonable price. But when a carrier is playing retail or a wholesale is playing retail, then there's always price war and quality of service is going to be affected. But if we collaborate and avoid duplicating of effort, for example, you go to a region where you find Green Telecom has already covered that region. You don't invest there and compete. You go to another virgin region, which is untapped, and then you invest there. So when Green Telecom go to a territory where, say, Simbanet is on there, they will collaborate and share infrastructure. The same as carrier neutral data center. Not everybody need to build data center. You have a carrier neutral data center where you share and then move forward. So even for the same example he was referring on spectrum, this spectrum license and fee become too much. But if the regulator can move faster enough and also allow for spectrum sharing, this will allow more players to come in and compete with innovative and a better solution rather than having monopoly in spectrum, and then you can't be flexible and save the market.
Okay, so usually in the telecom, we've got the backhaul operators, we've got the last mile operators, and we've got the subsea operators. Now we've got the DC operators. So my thinking when I look at Tanzania is to look at Kenya, but maybe I'm wrong. Right now, there's like a lot of cables coming into Tanzania. There are a finite numbers of ISPs in Tanzania, but we only got one data center. So the situation is what is the main change pushing Tanzania? Is it the new cables? Is it the fact that Wingu is there? Is it the fact that actually there's a very strong collaboration stronghold between the ISPs and the MVNOs? What is really making Tanzania stable in its ICT market?
Thank you. Let me put your statement a little bit more correct.
Sure.
There's not only one data center. There are many data centers. So quickly, you can say about 6 to 8 data centers.
Sorry, open access, neutral.
Okay, so
yeah.
I'm going there. So most of these data centers are MNOs owned and government owned. So it's only Wingu which is a carrier neutral data center. So back to your question, the carrier neutral, yes, has attracted more new cables to come in because from the Djibouti experience, because of our carrier neutrality, they opted to proceed with carrier neutrality. But the MNOs and ISP has done a very big job, a very, very good job with the existing 2 cables that were there, CCOM and Easy. They've done a very good job. Of course, there are some shortfall, but they were able to reach more people, but also cross-border through the national backbone. So the demand for more bandwidth is also driving for new cables to come in because people need diversity, but also the volume that being pushed through CCOM and Easy need to grow further. So back to your question, yes, it is both. The carrier neutral data center coming into the picture, but MNO and ISP has done a very big job, but also the investment in MNO side because now the mobile penetration, the 4G, 3G have reached further into the interior parts. Okay. So demand for data is growing up, but also other solutions like IoT, smart meters, which is more provided by MNOs. This also push for more solutions which are coming from people like a CMI that need to be more collaborative to provide more smart solution to the community.
Okay. So now we can go towards the CDN. So I guess I had a question on the panel. What was CND? And I just changed, being dyslexic, the letter. So the CDN, the Facebook, the Meta, the Google, the YouTube, the Microsoft, they are all pushing investments actually. And surprisingly in Tanzania, the impact has been very indirect. However, they are pushing investments for the operators to lay the infrastructure in order to better accessibility to the retail. And perhaps my question is, in a way for you, Kevin, because I know you're driving the CDN from a more eastern, let's say, area, such as Tencent, TikTok, which is actually very, very used by Africans. Would you say that the investment is leveled to the right way, leaning on a long-term benefit to the operators versus the investment that they have to lay sometimes in not a easy way to make sure that they can partner with the CDNs? That was actually for a case with Ekiano and Facebook, where Google has been very critical on how the investment was to happen. So, to Africa, Facebook, Meta is behind it. How can you perhaps lean on a more descriptive approach of the beneficial relationship between CDNs and operators?
Good question. I think it's been a debate for several years. Maybe I'll start by giving an example of a slightly different industry, which is like taxi hailing services. If you look at the Uber model, for example, when Uber first launched, let's even use Kenya, the traditional taxi drivers fought it so much. They actually would block the roads or maybe even stone the Uber drivers, right? Fast forward maybe 8 years next, everyone is on Uber, right? So the point being, you cannot stop an idea whose time has come. And I think this is the same thing happening in our industry, where we are seeing a lot more collaboration with the OTT providers and the telcos. For how long can we, as operators, criticize Facebook and let's say all the content providers for wanting to use your network to reach the end masses? I think everyone benefits when more people are connected, right? It's just that in their business model, they don't factor for your cost of building that because they imagine that you also want to reach them, right? So in our view, we are seeing this collaboration increasing because first, if we work together to reduce the cost, both our cost, MNO plus operator plus data center provider, everyone, first, let's work together to reduce or subsidize the cost of this infrastructure. To Africa, for example, costed us $2 billion. There's no one single company that was going to do it. It needed a collaboration of several different players to put the investment of this scale. So when you find operators like China Mobile collaborating with players like Meta, then first of all, that cost is coming down. Then you now have landed the cable. You need it to be neutral facilities to avoid cross-connect cost and all that. We have said, like in Africa, there's no cross-connect costs anywhere you go. And that's about 33 countries in Africa. So that's again changing the landscape dramatically. So just to stick on the content, there's someone who was telling me, 5 years ago, we were talking of data as a new oil, because if you have data, you can actually control what's happening. Unfortunately, there's a war happening today between Israel and Gaza, for example, right? There's data models that could predict this war is about to happen as far back as 2 years ago. So how much valuable is this data, for example? So if data is king, then content is King Kong. And there's because the one with actually that data, the one generating or controlling that data is the more powerful person, right? So I think to shift this conversation to an Africa scene is we need to start empowering the local communities, our own subscribers, to start using the data for meaning. And we spoke again about it early in the morning, that Africans, we are more consumers at this moment. We are consuming this data. We're just downloading. We are consuming. It's time to start generating and creating this content, because once the content is owned by us, stored locally by us, then they need you more than we need them, and that's the vision I have for Africa.
Thanks. I think that's very interesting, specifically because I don't see a lot of CDNs actually having clearly put foot on the ground outside of Microsoft. Said, looking at the startup hub digital landscape out of Tanzania, would you say that there's special room to there's leeway for Tanzanians as local data creation, let's say, initiatives to boom? And what is Green Telecom doing, if it's doing something with that over the top overlay kind of content creation drives?
Okay. So we've been working with the MNOs for the past 8 years.
Now I realized,
yeah,
that's for startups,
yeah,
actually.
So we've been working with all of the MNOs in terms of value-added services. We create content that communicates directly to the end users, and we run several trivias like soccer to infotainment, and it's more of a gaming platform whereby someone responds to trivia questions. They're gratified, and either daily, monthly, weekly. And through these channels, we do have revenue share models with the MNOs. So apart from that, we've also created. So as we all know, SMS has always been king. It will continue being that way for some time in Africa. So we've also been developing digital platforms for people to be able to enable also the mobile operators to push more data and people to subscribe to the digital platforms rather than just using the SMS platforms. So the potential in terms of services, as Green Telecom, we are looking at several projects which I would like to share visions that we're looking at. Having public Wi-Fi, whereby in future, looking for future collaborations from the likes of TikTok, Facebook, to be able to give free public Wi-Fi, whereby end users can be able to create this content and commercialize it for the future and generations.
Thanks. And yeah, actually, I want to make a relationship with Wingu here. This collaboration between a smaller size ISP privately owned versus an incumbent sized operator. How would you say, and perhaps Freddie, you can answer for that, promoting Wingu, how would you put Wingu, Freddie, as an enabler to that kind of collaboration? If actually, Said, you agree with me that Wingu has been helping interconnections or collocation of equipments. Maybe I'm touching here on a very soft ground, but as an open access environment allowed more collaboration or ease them at implementable level. Or maybe you say it and then you, Freddie.
So as Green Telecom, we've been able to drastically grow from being a local ISP to a regional carrier to international. So we recently, last month, we set up a POP in Ikolo, and currently we also at Wingu. At the same time, we are at Tigo Data Center. So apart from only that, we also have a POP at the TTCL telephone house, which enables us to serve 8 cross-border countries. With this, so I would love to say that the fact that we are at Wingu and Tigo and Ikolo, our strategy has always been having a sustainable digital infrastructure. And the reason why we are at these data centers is because of sustainability, accessibility, and affordability. So I would say through these different collaborations, we are able to give access between all the 8 neighboring countries within Tanzania, which makes us a regional ICT hub.
Okay.
Thank you. Before I go to the second question, I would like to contribute on the initial question on the content. So in Tanzania, there is still more market, and this is a message to MNOs, because we are carrier neutral. We don't will host your content, but will not do the content business. If you see in terms of population, we have the youngest generation. Of course, Africa has the youngest generation. So here you can see the things like bongo movies. These are movies in Swahili movies. There is content called bongo flavor. It's a music that is consumed entire Africa. Nigeria listening to Tanzanian bongo music, but there is a new mode of music also come in. I don't know if how long are you going to be stay here, but there is this called Singeli.
I've seen on the taxi on the screen of a taxi. They always listen to African music. I have no idea about where it is, but I watch it.
So that Singeli is wonderful.
Okay,
very vibrant and interesting. Okay, so those are, and also here in Zanzibar there is a very good taarab here, and very traditional taarab, which is very good. So it's consumed in DRC, Nigeria, all over Africa, and some of other people will like in the Middle East, because they have a relationship from Tanzania. So those are the contents that we need MNOs and like a CDN players to condense, prepare it, like package it very well, so that different packages can be created for this community to be exported into other markets, because we are now like more consuming which has been created in Europe or in Asia. But it's time now our MNOs and carriers package this, also export, so that people can see what development is happening in Tanzania. So there is more market also for content in Africa. It's only that we need to create proper infrastructure so that somebody can record this, upload it. There is a server somewhere to make it available all the time. So coming back to where we can work with MNOs, this is also a key point to do with Wingu, because when player like a Green Telecom wants capacity from say MNO, and they are all meeting at Wingu Meet Me Room, we are not trading in capacity. So our goal is to facilitate them interconnect or cross connect. So even the rates we are putting there, it's very, very minimum, because our goal is people to collocate in our facility, not to trade on capacity. So as Wingu, we stand a very good chance to continue supporting MNOs and ISP, because our goal is to facilitate, not to compete. Because when even international carrier come in, our goal is to make sure that international collocate with MNOs, with ISP, to make sure that everybody win. So for Wingu, we'll continue providing a conducive environment, affordable rate, so that everybody can collaborate and succeed.
Thanks, Freddie. Actually, I just want to add also, and perhaps we can develop on this. I come from West Africa, so I've seen that Tanzania is very unique in Africa, and probably you may know why. It's because usually in one A country like Kenya, even Kenya, you've got one backhaul provider, at least today. And in Tanzania, we've got at least 3 backhauls providers. And it seems that Tanzania is already leapfrogging in its accessibility than other countries. And this is why I believe a lot of people are talking about Tanzania as quite a potential powerhouse. So we've got Airtel, we've got Tigo Zantel, we've got TDCL. Back in the days when I first stepped in Tanzania, I was actually providing a solution for EcoBank. So I had to navigate the intricacies of lending a cable activation. In Kenya, I had to go to Anne because of Telkom. Here, I had to go to TCCL. And in the space of 5 years, I still got that corporate contract. I've got 3 options today if I really was in a similar scenario. So probably, Anne, you can dwell on this, is looking at your experience at Telkom and having the power of everyone to activate from a Orange, from a CMI, from a PCCW, or from whoever who wanted to activate a circuit to today. Would you say that Tanzania has something to offer that perhaps Kenya can look at? And is Kenya addressing this? Or obviously, the size of the 2 markets are very different. But since there's a lot of intimacy in terms of culture, there might be some common points to say.
Yes, I think definitely there'll always be common points of where we can learn from each other. And what I like about Tanzania is the market, of course, are different in terms of the scale of the addressability and the players into the market. I find this market more coming from a tier 1 operator. The market was sort of it was much more closed, but I've seen quite a significant change even when I talk to not only with Freddie, but also with other operators I was talking to earlier. The small ISPs who are trading in Zanzibar, they were telling me now they're able to access more connectivity, especially when they're serving the hotels. They have more options than there was before. They can buy from more players from the mainland and be able to deliver that capacity locally within the island. So I think the market has started opening it up more and more. There could be reasons behind that. Of course, most tier 1 operators are always closed off in terms when it comes to dealing with their business cases. The costs are very high, so they want to tend to be quite non-responsive when it comes to some issues. But I've seen quite most of the instances we are hearing about the growth that has been there in this market. There's a lot of leapfrogging in supporting the likes of Zanlink and Zannet. I've met quite a number of them on how they can access some of this capacity. And majorly what we could also see and cross-share and learn from each other is in Kenya before, backhaul provisioning was mainly by tier 1 operators, and that's the reason why we used to have a conversation with you. Right now, there are different entities. Today, when you're having a conversation, you're telling me you're getting different connectivity because we have utility providers now providing long-haul fibers over their power lines, OPGW lines. We have Ketraco that does the long haul. Then, of course, we have Kenya Power that does the last mile. And then operators have also laid fiber along the railway line. So they've laid fiber, an operator will come and lease that dark fiber and be able to use it to serve. So there are multiple entries into the country, all the way from Mombasa to Nairobi, going to Busia, to the border of Ethiopia and South Sudan and the rest, because the market has been opened up in such a way. So they've been given licenses. We have more than 50 plus operators at different levels, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, able to provide this backhaul terrestrial connectivity. So what you're also finding now in our market, which is quite interesting, and which as an operator before, when I was present in an operator, we used to fight, is there's a lot of demand when it comes to dark fiber connectivity, especially the likes of CMI. CMI will activate huge capacity of data. They look at it, buying it at least capacity. They look at the cost of doing it in the market. They're like, no, I'm better off doing it on dark fiber level. So the next step that is coming on, the conversation I'm even having with some of the providers, the customers who are coming to my data center, they're telling me, can you direct me to an operator that can give me dark fiber? I want to do my own switching. I want to do my own lighting. Is because I've looked at my roadmap. I know if I buy it on capacity level, there's no business case for me. Of course, there's a thin line between that when you're talking about with an operator who's already lit all this fiber with someone who's new. So a lot of the new providers now, like the utility providers, they don't care about capacity because for them, that's not their core business. They have dark fiber, multiple cores. They can give it to you at dark fiber level. We have the small players, what we call the wireless internet service provider. They're nimble, they're quick, they're agile. They want to provide it in dark fiber level because they don't have a competing capacity business that they're looking at. So those are the interesting areas that you're seeing. A different kind of product is coming in where a lot of providers are trying to make sure how quickly can we have terrestrial, because as it comes from this from the C to the CLS, moving from the CLS to a data center, there's a cost impact on it. How low the cost is the one that's going to define how cheap and affordable is the end user going to get it, and how quickly can all these providers come into the data center space. How are we able to talk to them and tell them you'll be able to sell at dark fiber level, talk to this customer, and create an ecosystem that can serve everyone on different spectrums.
Okay, excellent. And a lot of the KPIs we see from a data center is the numbers of cross connections, right? If I'm not mistaken. Today we've got Microsoft, but it was public knowledge. You were announced it. I didn't know. I saw Liquid and Wingu had an announcement to make. How much cross connections more until we've got a next big CDN from abroad coming into Tanzania? That might be actually a question for CMI because of Asians also CDNs coming here. So, yeah, Said, please. Yeah.
Before I give to Said, you mentioned 3 players in Tanzania that can provide backhaul, but I think we are not being fair to our colleague from Halotel, Viatel. He's also a player on a backhaul, but also Vodacom. So we have like 6 or 8 players providing backhauls.
You mean Airtel from Halotel? Yeah. Are you a backhaul on a terrestrial and on a subsea level, or MNO? Okay. Yeah. Well, if you want to sit, there's a space, and probably we'll have a question for you. Okay. So say please, because
actually I wanted to throw the same question, as in hand over the question.
Go ahead.
So that you can ask.
Okay.
In the crowd, it was more like playing a devil's. I wanted to play a devil's advocate in terms of what do we need to do to ensure that we have these CDNs more increased, especially for Tanzania, because the trend is more of, first it starts in South Africa, then from South Africa we go to Kenya, meaning Mombasa, but what do we need to do in order to increase the volumes and all these CDN players like Microsoft, TikTok, Facebook, and the rest, basically? What do we need to do? Of course, we have the likes of CMI that can do that. You have the Wingus. I'm sure they have some negotiations, but based out of the growth that is happening in Tanzania, I believe in this room, through our own connections or collaborations, we can make sure that they come even faster than what we anticipate.
And that goes back to the origin, which is the growth of the population, I guess. And the population growth and analysis will drive the decisions to come and invest, I reckon. Is there any questions from the crowd? Maybe if please.
Okay, I think that if you want to put more CDN in Tanzania, because CDN on way from some big group like Microsoft, I think TikTok, like Facebook, anything, that we need to increase to get more power before negotiation with them. How to do this? I think that's the simple answer. That we increase more subscriber from Tanzania using the services. How to do this? The first maybe by the increase the number of smart device. The second maybe by the increase the network coverage, network quality. And the third maybe decrease the price for using mobile data. If it will come from many companies, from animal, from your company, and from DC company also. Yes, I think that's try to increase the number of subscribers using the service of some big group like TikTok, Facebook, anything. we get the big number, we can very confident to negotiate with Facebook to put CDN in here. That's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're a bit short on time, and maybe we want to get to the cocktails. So let's keep the questions outside. And thank you guys for joining, and really thank you for your patience with me and for my guests.